Nigel Farage swore that he wouldn't appear on the BBC again, and yet this morning there he was on Laura Kuenssberg's show. And this has sparked, his appearance has sparked controversy, partly because Laura Kuenssberg didn't ask any follow-up questions about the sort of things that he was saying. He's also written an article in one of the Sunday newspapers, and he says that he's off to see Trump in America. And in the article and on television, he seemed to blame the left for Trump's attack, while Mr. Trump was attacked by a card-carrying Republican, a person who was quite clearly a member of the Republican Party and was wearing a T-shirt which was emblazoned with Demolition Ranch, a popular gun website when the police shot him dead. Nigel is instigating the same divisive and toxic politics that Trump has in the States. This is the sort of comment which has appeared on Twitter. One tweet says, "This creates polarization and extremism on both sides and creates these events." Another says, "We need to take the hate out of politics, or this could become common. Hate breeds hate. Farage is not wrong, but Farage is not wrong about liberal intolerance and the fact that careless talk costs lives. But will Farage concede that Donald Trump has played a part in fomenting the politics of anger?" Simon Scarrow says we should blame the Supreme Court for the attempt on Trump's life. If they didn't block his sentencing on Thursday for his 34 felonies, he'd have been safely locked away in prison. In his comments, Farage attributed the attack on former President Donald Trump to a hostile media environment perpetuated by the left. He argued that this environment has fostered a culture of violence and hatred, citing examples of aggressive language and actions against right-wing figures like himself and Trump. Farage contended that the media's portrayal of Trump as an authoritarian and fascist has normalized violent rhetoric and actions. He referenced statements from public figures like David Aronovich and Joe Biden as contributing to this toxic discourse, and indeed at the moment a lot of adverts are being pulled from American television because they are contributing to this toxic discourse. Democrat adverts are being pulled. Good idea. Farage's argument suggests that the left's inflammatory language has real-world consequences, as evidenced by the attack on Trump, and he called for more respectful political dialogue. And from that point of view, of course, he's absolutely right, but I don't think he's contributed to that. And concerns about the BBC giving Farage a platform stem from accusations of hypocrisy and the potential to exacerbate political divisions. Critics such as the former MEP Richard Corbett highlighted Farage's past use of violent rhetoric, including his threat to pick up a rifle if Brexit wasn't delivered. In fact, why don't we listen to that?
If it's not delivered, there will be widespread public anger in this country on a scale and in a way that we have never seen before. If that happens, much as I'm enjoying myself, I love doing the LBC talk show 4 nights a week. I love doing it. Please stay. Those of you really engaged, it's a great fun thing to do. I enjoy my trips to the States with Trump at the White House and everything else. I've been enjoying my life. But if they don't deliver this Brexit that I spent 25 years of my life working for, then I will be forced to don khaki, pick up a rifle, and head for the front lines.
So this surely is a good reason why the BBC should not have hosted him. And I don't understand why Laura Kuenssberg wasn't capable of asking a follow-up question precisely about his rhetoric of picking up a rifle. But the backlash on social media also pointed out Farage's role in fueling divisive politics and the irony of his blaming the left for violence while ignoring the role of right-wing rhetoric. But again, the issue really here is the difference between rhetoric and performance and incitement, and it's about intent and it's about context. So, for example, I've spoken a few times about the use of lyrics, aggressive lyrics in drill music, and how they need to be taken within context, and how even Shakespeare was using very aggressive language. He was giving it to his villains for the most part to demonstrate the difference between good and bad. So you have a clear exchange of extremes. You also see it in pantomime and even in fairy tales. Extraordinary aggression promoted in the fairy tales of Hans Christian Andersen and the Brothers Grimm. But we don't expect it to be real. And that move from language to reality is a big one. And it's not clear whether this is incitement or whether this is simply a rhetorical flourish or a satirical twist, a string of entertaining words, invective. His appearance on the BBC has ignited a debate about media responsibility. So it's either I think the big issue is the failure of the BBC, the failure of modern television programs to push back and to ask those secondary questions, in the same way as there is a failure across the media in general to properly block performances. So you know, if you go back to some of the performances in the early 1970s, like some of the shows in the early 1970s, like I, Claudius, you have these long, elaborate takes with the camera roving around and people being blocked in very carefully. So they're moving around constantly, but they're always in frame in a meaningful way. And that meaningful use of the camera and the meaningful use of the interviewer seems to have been lost. If the interviewer is simply reading a list of questions so that the politician can simply respond, that is not an interview. That's a job request. And it's absurd because they've already got the job. We want incisive conversation. I think we ought to jettison the word interview and talk about a conversation where there is an exchange of ideas, where there is some sort of response from both sides. We don't get that from Laura Quensberg. We used to get it from Jeremy Paxman, and we used to get it from Laura Quensberg's predecessor. We don't get it from her. The interviews are bland and dull, and rather we might as well see her genuflecting in front of the people she's interviewing. It's absurdly reverential. And so while Farage criticised the left for encouraging violence, his own history of inflammatory statements complicates the position. And this incident underscores the challenges of maintaining a civil political discourse in an increasingly polarised environment, and of the nature of language and the nature of conversation and comment. And I think a lot of this goes down to intent and context. And I don't think anything could... I don't think anything that Trump or Farage has actually said could promote an assassination attempt. The assassination attempt is something that has to be attributed and explained by the person who pulled the trigger. And he is dead. But we need to change the environment in which political discourse takes place. And I see no problem with invective. I see no problem with satire. I see no problem with hard-hitting questions or even interesting and forceful statements. But they need to be put within the context, and they need to be followed up and rebutted and indeed laughed at. But I think social media preserves things in aspects so that you get the impression that this is a statement which is there for life. It's not there for life. It's there to debate. It's there to question. It's there to provoke a response. And from that point of view, I don't think this is about language. This is about gun control. And this is about inadequate security. And this is about the failure of engagement. This is about slogans, and this is about the nature of modern political rallies. And Farage is quite right in talking about the rallies and talking about the defiance of Trump. Trump will go back because the rally is Trump's home, because Trump is a demagogue, and Trump is most alive when he has a large audience. The larger the audience, the more life he feels. A little bit like Boris. And I think we have to accept that. And Biden is not alive in that environment. So a Biden-Trump conversation, it's about two people living in two completely different worlds. And that's why a good interview would find a way of bridging that gap. And so far we don't see that, in the same way as we didn't see a good interview and a good exchange between Starmer and Sunak. All we saw was an opportunity for Starmer and Sunak to recite the slogans that they had learnt and been given. If we want second-rate amateur actors, we should be going to a nativity play, because that's what it is. These are not even good performers, and yet they're learning a script and trying to command an audience. The people who are good at it, the Donald Trumps, they really do command an audience, and they show us how it's done. And Farage is superb, by the way. A superb performer. I don't like his message, but his performance is without parallel. It's a limited range of performance, and when he brings it into the House of Commons, it doesn't work. As he found out the other day, it's offensive, it's wrong, it's misplaced. Ed Davey, when he brings his stuff into the House of Commons, similarly misplaced. He belongs on a playground. Farage belongs in a big rally. Trump belongs in a big rally. It's when you move the environment, the problems occur. We need to rethink the structure and the nature of debate, political debate, particularly in the 21st century.